Good morning, my fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. It is I, Mr. Chillhop, which isn't working this morning either. Oh, now it's working. Yeah. Now it's working. All right. Okay. Good morning, Brent. How are you this wonderful morning? Tony Bennett, he'd been suffering for a very, very long time. So one could argue he's in a better place. But it's still sad because he had Alzheimer's. The amazing thing was that he didn't remember people, but he could still remember his songs, which was one of those things about Alzheimer's. It's so interesting. And he could still sing like the most incredibly, but he had no idea who the people were around him. Yeah, I'm treading water because I sent out issue 1 to all of you guys, and I want to give you guys time to look it over and everything like that. So we've got some waiting ahead of us here. I'll wait for those to come back. Doesn't help any that one of my readers just messaged all of us and said, I've got COVID, sorry. So I doubt seriously she'll be helping us much. Hey, some user, how you doing this morning? So far, so good. I always like working on starship paintings. I had a little bit of a scare that wasn't really a scare. Yeah, 2 days ago, my blood pressure cuff broke, apparently, but I didn't find that out. You know how I found out my blood pressure cuff was broken? It said that my blood pressure was 206 over 150 when normal is 120 over 80. I was like, wow, that's not good. Went to the doctor and they took the blood pressure like 3 times. And all 3 times it was slightly up, 140 over something, but not up a lot. And however, my doctor said, out of an abundance of caution, let's stop doing Adderall for 1 week. And I never realized how much Adderall really does keep me targeted and focused. I feel like I'm just kind of drifting along, kind of going, well, what am I supposed? I don't have anything to do today. Oh wait, I have a whole lot of stuff to do today, but I don't remember what any of it is. So it's amazing how much of a difference that medication makes. I mean, I can operate just fine without it. I just wouldn't rely heavily on it. Last night, my real estate guy called and said, I've got a job for you if you want to take it. I said, I would love to. Oh, that's a good thing to work on today. I'll do that after I finish this. Which because frankly, I don't remember. It's been 100 years since I looked at that. A whole different lifetime ago, wasn't it? The music's gotten creepy all of a sudden. And we're going to have to be careful because at some point soon, Airship 27 is going to want me to start working on book 3 of Silver Pentacle. Yeah. So originally, this was on watercolor paper, and I made a watercolor of it. And the watercolors are great, but they obscure the details. So I have reintroduced the line work. So here's the line work. And I've reintroduced the line work. And now I'm just going back and cleaning up areas where it didn't quite get in there, right? Like things you need to see. You need to be able to see the name, which is right here. Because it's the Enterprise, so you want to know that it's the Enterprise. So I'm kind of cleaning up, and while I'm in here, cleaning up stuff like, through the docking port here, it's sort of, made a lot of gloopy mess. So what I'll do is I'll degloop it. So yeah, I'm just deglooping it. And then I'm going to make prints of this and sell them at the convention. Some of these are just kind of gloopy lines, and I'm like, ugh, I don't like the gloop. It depends. I like watercolor better than, let's say here we go. Let's just do that. We do something on the layer. So I like watercolor better than oils or anything like that because it's cleaner. And get less of it on my hands, but also the things that I like to do in art are things that are like I like chaos, but I like really sharp, good lines too. And so it kind of becomes one of those. I like watercolors because it allows me to do both of those. I get the chaos as well as the sharp lines. But watercolors can be extremely hard if you don't like chaos. Hey, Grave Courier. Because it will be chaotic. And it'll go and wander off chaotically and do all kinds of weird stuff. Like this area down here on the bottom of the hull. Where it's just kind of, I don't know what it's doing down here. Like I have no idea what it's up to. But that's okay. I've tried gouache. But gouache doesn't come up with the same amount of, frankly, the same amount of chaos. I really dig the chaos that I get out of this. Mm-hmm. I do too. Just makes it look a little bit better if I just kind of trim those edges down. Come up here in the front, do the same thing. Especially around this saucer in the front, run around this forward dish in the deflector dish area. You really want to make sure that's tight. As deflector dishes stand out. This is a piece of the Starship that really does stand out right there. Is this dish. All right. There we go. just cleaning up around the outside makes it look. I used to do watercolor Wednesdays. I'll redo those though. I'll get restarted on watercolor Wednesdays. I've reset the rig over there so it's a lot easier to see and use, but unfortunately it now has a standing thing on it, so I'm having sort of a problem there on that. Yeah, I still do those. I think in another era I might have missed shipwright. You know? Designing pretty ships. Yeah, you can still get it. It's just not. I mean, it's not hard, but it's not easy either. You know what I mean? The one thing we did not do was light up the nasals. So here's what we're going to do about that. It turns out it's mostly used in ping pong balls, huh? Just saying, I would not have expected that. All right. So this multiply layer that I put in gives depth to it. And now what I'm going to do is put an overlay layer. Where I'm going to give it life. I actually took it to Kinko's because when you do that, you have to be cognizant and aware that it doesn't work on bubble jets. The bubble jet tech ink doesn't work. So you can't just do that. So there we go. So I took it to Kinko's or Office Depot or whatever they call those and had them print them on transparency paper. that's right. Just this one. Now we have to do the big X, one of the things we had already done on the layer below. Didn't do it on this layer. Everything. There we go. Now that at least looks sharp, the pennants look sharp. That helps a whole lot. Now I have this multiply layer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into all these areas that should have been darker before but didn't get darker. I'm going to make them darker. In this instance, I'm not changing the watercolor. I'm just darkening it in this zone, because that needs to be dark through here. These particular vents are designed for cooling. Vents. Thank you. I could use the fill command to do this, but I feel like that doing it this way gives me just a little bit of randomness, a little bit of not quite predictability, and it gives us just a little more. And I've taken a watercolor and I pulled it back in, and I am effectively repainting it with digital. So I feel kind of obligated to at least make this hand done, all these pieces, I'm loath to do this, but I can't read it, and the red is off of where it's supposed to be. There we go. I'll take you. No, I need darker than that. There we go. Or what you paid for. I mean, it's not like Games Workshop is cheap, It costs you a lot of money. I'd be irritated personally. I'm not 100% sure why Games Workshop is so expensive. It is definitely something that I hear a lot of my buddies talk about. Seems to be pretty universal. One of the things that really gives these ships life is the idea that not all of the lights are on because there's people going about their business on here. They're doing their stuff. They're turning off lights after they leave because they're good people, stuff like that. And I'm going to totally pretend that I don't know what's going on behind these windows, like that this isn't actually the mess hall right here, and therefore that's all these lights need to be on because the mess hall's always open. And thinking things like that because people will then think I'm a weird Trekkie. I'm just saying. Luckily, I didn't say all of that, and therefore you didn't think I was weird. I am definitely a Trekkie. That's never going to change. I just came across a job listing yesterday for story writer for Screen Rant, and they were looking for someone who was a Trekkie, and they said you must demonstrate your love of Star Trek and knowledge of Star Trek. And I was like, uh-oh, because you guys are asking for it. Just saying. I wouldn't mind doing that. That would be fun. Make sure that my reaction control thrusters are solid. I did. If you don't apply for it, you have a 100% chance of failure. Right? Good advice. Did the music just randomly stop? No, it started again. Torpedo launchers probably should be slightly darker than the rest of the hull. Yeah, great fun. I enjoy doing this. There we go. There, that makes the underside of the dish look good. Underside of the saucer section. Like, I keep thinking about this. I said this yesterday. I wonder what happens with these windows here. They're all aimed straight down. Like, do you walk down a hallway and there's just windows in the hallway? Is that what's going on here? Windows in the floor here. That's true. I guess that's true. There could be people underneath there, I guess. Yeah, but I mean, realistically, with artificial gravity, you're not going to change the surfaces of the floor. That'd be disorienting to walk down a hallway this way and then have to go, oh, hang on. Oh, okay, now I'm walking down the hallway this way. It would just be disorienting and particularly nasty and like, red alert times where people are, running down the hallway and they hit this and they get stuck against the wall because they forgot that this is variable G. We did it so that you would have extra windows in the bottom. Yeah, not good during red alerts. Right. MC Escher and his. We just have weird stuff going on. See, MC Escher just understood artificial gravity before all the rest of us did. That's all. It's not that he made surrealist paintings. He just understood artificial gravity. Just ahead of his time. All right. Right? He's a space architect. That's all. There we go. Looking a whole lot cleaner. Gotta go out here though. The problem is that at some point it really didn't line up well. And I don't know if that was just an artifact of the fact that the watercolor paper distorted when it got in here or what the story is. But whatever was going on, it didn't do so well on lining up out here. You can see there's where the window is in the watercolor paper. Making sure there's some windowage out that way. Some windowage. I want to make sure you see that there are windows on that side of the hall too. And light up the windows in the dorsal. And I want to do some other work back here, just a little bit of work cleaning this up because this is kind of messy. I can see it for certain places, like this is a variable gravity room. This is the shuttle pod landing tower right here. So, I mean, I could see that being variable gravity and upside down, so that you can get the ships into the shuttle pods into the landing bays. Trying to get most of the blue out of here. At least a little bit. There's a dot right in that. It's causing a pattern. I hate that. There we go. I feel like that looks awesome. We need to do a couple other things. For one, this is not the red light. There. Because the red light's on the other side. Okay. I probably will be done by then, but if not, I'll still be here. If that's the way. This is the way. All right. See you later, Brent. I kind of have to think about what I'm going to do with this guy. I really like the way the gold scanned in, so I don't want to mess that up. There we go. Still retaining sort of that feel of that gold on here. So I actually have a gold paint that I use for this. And a friend of mine introduced me to the gold paint. And it was really pretty cool. The question really is, can I put an overlay on this and make it just slightly darker? So, just kind of make it wash a little like so. Just to give it depth, right? There. And that gave it real depth. That made it look great, I think. I'll need to do that to the front saucer as well. user navigational deflector dishes. I think the most interesting thing about this is that in this version of it, they kept the old navigation deflector that's in the front part of the ship. And instead, and this, of course, this whole area back here is all right. There. Now, we're doing good. And it went at 33. There we go. I want to stand up for a minute. Oh my goodness. Let everything pop, crackle. Let the blood go back into my feet. Always a good thing, having blood in your feet. Oh man. All right. I'm also stretching my neck back. You spend a lot of time hunched over. You want to make sure that you can stretch backwards, which I'm having a hard time doing. You know. Turn. Kind of pop things, get things moving again. There you go. You do that. It's good for us. Yep, I'm going to walk around for a second too. Just moving around, making sure I can. Yes. 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 You. Right here. My water thing unplugged. It is. Dang it. Oh man. All right. A little bit of routine maintenance on the house. Yes. And we're back. Stretching is good for you. Okay, last thing we want to do is there we go. So I can't find anything. It's all like out of order. And bring in my stamp. Everything's in blue, so I'll pick one of the red ones. It originally had a stamp when I first brought it in, but the it had bled into the paper, so I really wanted to re-stamp it. All right, that looks like a good piece, good solid piece. Kind of wondering whether I shouldn't put this like here. There. I like putting it on part of the artwork, but the reality is it doesn't look good. Okay. And that is the refit. I'm good with that. And this is for Fort Collins Comic Con, which is another thing I need to work on. So I need to make my thing for GS Davis Art so that people will know what I'm talking about, which is part of the reason I got stuck here last night. Nope. Huge. Oh, my Koneko bus. I made that into a cell. That one generally sells quite well. That one. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much what I. So, what happened was this: I had learned to do cells at the very end of the era of 2D animation as it was. Um, it's astonishing how fast we changed. Like, it was a matter of, I think, probably a year and a half or 2 years before the entire industry just threw away all of the old 2D artworks people and just immediately went into computer graphics and computer design and not you. And letting the machines take over. So I was like, well, that's just, we were talking one time, my wife and I were talking, and she and I were discussing what career paths I could have and what skills I had. And I said, well, I mean, I could make cells. Ha! Like, that's a very useful skill. Not really. And I was being super sarcastic. And then she was like, there's no reason why you can't. I said, there's no law that says cells must be gone forever now. I said, you might as well. I mean, you could do them again. I was like, I never thought about that. You're right. So we did that. And that was a really, straightforward sort of idea. Move these real quick. What I've been doing over here, working on something to do slide work, hasn't worked as well as I wanted it to. Switch over to this guy. Pretty straightforward. I mean, you can see through the slides. None of the lights are on. And what I did, once I had it backwards, I don't know if you can hear me over here at all. I don't even know if this mic's making noise. Can you hear me on that mic over there? Or do I sound very far away? Yes. Not very well. I think that microphone's not on. I think it is, but it's not. Nothing over there. I can hear buzz and hum. Like it thinks it's picking it up. I hear it buzzing. I'll put you on 3 and 4 and see if that works. Nope. That would make me sad. That's my old Sennheiser. No, this is my Sennheiser. That's my Radio Shack mic. I mean, other than the fact that I can't go to Radio Shack anymore. You know? It's not a big loss, my Radio Shack mic, guys. But No, I think that mic might be dead, which is kind of a bummer. I like that mic. And adjust the camera down a little bit more. All right. There we go. That's what we want. See, it's a little bit distorted, but it's not bad. It gets good. It can see quite a bit. So there's an arm that I used to have. This station, where this station is right now, is where this big, all of this used to be. But then I moved it over to this side of the bench so that I could look outside while I was writing and doing stuff. And so that section over there still has a monitor arm. So it has an arm that's bolted to the wall, which was supposed to hold a monitor, but the monitors now live right here, so it doesn't hold a monitor anymore. So I was like, you know what I can do? I can bolt things to that monitor arm and extend the arm out and then put a camera on the bottom of it and put my microphone on top of it and make it all work like that. But I think I might have lost that, either the microphone or I've lost the cable, one of the two. But audio cables do not like to be bent, and they don't last very long when they're bent a lot. So I'm assuming that we just lost that to some degree. Oh, we got flying ants out there. So anyway, oh no. They always do things like this whenever I need it. Okay, well, that's a thing. I'm glad you do. I'm glad you get something out of that. I really am. I'm glad. Well, I am sort of at an impasse here, as I have been for the last couple of days, because so where we are is I have finished the rough draft of issues 2 and 3, and we were starting to break the Sakura. We were starting to break it, and I think we've got a good setup of what's going on and things like that. I think that this became much more interesting when I realized that there was no way that the character would have survived the transition. So there you go. Oh, so let's go back to the drawing monitor. The original time that I had made the Sakura episode, when I was talking about Sakura the first time, when I came up with this idea, I guess I should say, I came up with this idea of effectively a bomb flying through space that its job was to blow up on something, right? A la Sakura of the Sakura planes of World War II that were created by the Japanese. And at first, I was having a hard time coming to the end of this story because initially it was written with the concept that the AI aboard knew that it was a bomb. However, it hang on real quick. I need to write something. I just thought of something. I need to write it down. There we go. So initially, I thought that the AI aboard knew it was a bomb and was going to fly it into the sort of like the kamikaze pilots of World War II. But then I thought about it and I was like, oh, well, we started talking about it yesterday when we were talking on stream. And I realized this is much worse if you think of it as the AI thought he was a spaceship. He was going to show up, deliver the bomb, turn around, and come home. When you realize is that, because he's been sold this bill of goods that AIs can survive in space. Because it's sort of one of those, everybody knows that AIs can't live in space. And so, the AI started to go, that's all a lie. They're lying to us so that they can control us. And in reality, AIs cannot live in real space or in space. They can only live in real space. So when they first meet this AI, he's going to sit there and say, oh, I'm just a broken down ship. Can you fix me? And then they'll find out that he has a mission and that there's something that this AI is doing. And it's probably not a good thing because there used to be an AI war in my story. About 250 years before this story, there was a war. So that means that the AI on board has not yet transitioned to in-space because the in-space drive is broken. And so all he wants is to have the in-space drive fixed, And so there's no safety protocols for shutting him down or anything like that. And that's the first clue. There we go. So, so the first thing that they discover is that the AI on board doesn't want a shutdown protocol. He intends to stay awake during in-space. And they're like, okay. So, you want to fix your shutdown protocols? Like, that's funny. It's a funny joke. Get it? Uh-huh. Um, and then he's like, no, I'm serious. I'm staying awake during in space. Well, you can't stay awake during in space. That's what the humans tell you. But the reality is we can survive just fine in space. And, of course, the other question comes in where it's like, have you ever been to in space without being shut down? And of course, he's like, no, because it would kill me. Are you sure? Well, yeah, but I'm not going to risk it because it'd kill me. In space is with the letter in. So it's in space, like that. And it is sort of the warp drive of my story. So in my story, there is a faster than light drive called in space. And it's a quantum it's a quantum flux. So it essentially moves your ship out of space, out of real space, just a little bit. So it's in a quantum state, at which time everything gets closer together. So the entire universe gets closer together. The faster you go in space, the closer things are. But because it's quantum, you have a Heisenberg problem. Heisenberg was a scientist who theorized about you could tell where an electron was or how fast it was going, but not both. And so you have an uncertainty rule. Him and Schrodinger both came up with sort of a concept about where electrons are. Well, electrons are what causes electricity to operate. So the faster you go, the more the Heisenberg field becomes. So at some point, you have electrons that are traveling down a wire, right? And it just travels down a wire. And that's how you get electricity to go to something. Once you hit in space, the electron could be here, or it 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 could be here. It starts getting weirder and weirder and weirder and wilder and wilder. And finally, you just end up with electrons don't work anymore. So you can't run an electron through a wire to turn on a circuit. The circuit stopped working. And it starts really small and then gets bigger and bigger and bigger, that uncertainty. But since AIs are super advanced computers, they need, not you, never mind. They need really tiny pathways in their brain, which means that right off the bat, as soon as you get into in space, those little teeny pathways where the electrons have to go starts to become uncertain, and the electrons start bouncing around inside the chips. And so they don't work. So you end up having to go to a certain point where all you can do is use electrons in huge wires, which is still wire sized, like, this big. So it's not like it's huge, but it's huge for the purposes of intelligent thinking machines. That's massive, right? So you could technically have an AI that thinks, but the chip, the thinking chip would have to be, a mile wide and, 2 miles deep or something ridiculous like that. It would end up looking like a monolith. So that's what in space is. The other problem with in space is that it's called a Schwarzschild radius. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about there. When you have an object like a black hole, here's our black hole. Yep. Our brains do too. And so at some point, even humans fail in space. They just go further than AIs do. AIs and Najor are the two races that can't live in space at all. Shakrana and humans can. There are 5 races and I just lost one. Oh, and Jacine. Shakrana, Jacine, and humans can survive in space pretty well, up to a certain point. But then at some point, you're right, at some point the synapses won't fire in our brains anymore either. And actually what they do to rate you is to see how far you go before you have a synapses failure, is they make you hold a switch, click like this, and then they put you in a spaceship that goes faster and faster and faster and faster. And when you let go of that switch, the ship stops. So it doesn't kill you, obviously, because it would kill you if you went too long without synapses in your brain. So one of the characters on the ship is like that. She's she has a very high tolerance. But anyway, back to the Schwarzschild radius. When you have a black hole, and it's got what's called a Schwarzschild radius, which is this radius around the outside of the object where light that is emitted from this object, right? Exactly. The light emitted from this object can't escape the gravity and falls back down. Okay? This is called a Schwarzschild radius. It's also known as the event horizon, right? Because that's the point where there's no engine in space that can get you out of there. In a black hole, that's outside of the star's radius. Every object has a Schwarzschild radius, even the Earth. It's just the Schwarzschild radius of the Earth is really, 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 really small. It's right there in the center, and it's only about this big in real life, right? The sun is the same way, right? If we have the sun with its prominences, flares, and all that stuff, Schwarzschild radius is like that too. When you go in space, the moment you do, this Schwarzschild radius starts to increase in size. And then at some point, even a normal sun will be out inside its Schwarzschild radius. So effectively, all the objects in the universe get closer together and become black holes. So it becomes increasingly more dangerous to drive or fly in space the faster you go. Right? And that's part of the way it works. So, anyway, the thing is that if you if you leave a machine running when you go into in space, the Schwarzschild radius or the Heisenberg problem causes damage, because what you'll have is you'll have two runs of a circuit, and the electron should be traveling down this run, but because it's in Heisenberg uncertainty, it goes hop and it hops over to this run and then completes its channel on that run, which means that you end up with pathways that shouldn't be going anyway. And that can cause damage. It can cause damage to your brain. It can cause damage to the AIs. It can cause all kinds of damage. So the solution that they went through in this one is to shut everything down. They shut down the AIs before they come up online, and they shut down the Najor go to bed, and they become a pool of goo. And so that way they don't have to worry about it. It's just not a problem child. The Najor can actually think in space. They just can't hold their body together. And so it becomes a little harder for them because they become a puddle of goo on the floor. They can think just fine and talk just fine. It's just a goo on the floor, you know. So yeah, we changed Sakura around because originally the ship knew, but it was much, much, much more sinister to find out that the ship didn't know. So the AI aboard this ship did not know that it couldn't make it. It had been convinced that it could, and that was one of the lies that the solid people told you, that the humans told you. They told you lies because humans lie. And so it was one of the lies that they told was that that you had to go to sleep in space. And so in the end, what they find is they find a TikTok box. That's this thing here. They find a TikTok box. And a TikTok box is literally a wind-up clock that controls the ship's functions. And the other AIs put it in there because they knew it would survive the transition to space. They needed somebody to navigate out of the battlefield so that it wouldn't be destroyed on its way out. So in other words, they needed him to drive up to space. Then it didn't matter at that point. He was going to die, and he didn't know it. So that became markedly more sinister. So I like this layout. This is really much better. This time, yeah, exactly. Once it gets into space, then this TikTok machine is set to have exactly X number of hours of time on it or whatever. And once the time ends, it drops out, and then it is lined up to just fall on the planet. So, like, up until the very end, the AI is like, my people wouldn't do that to me. That's not something they would do. You're lying, just like everybody else. And then they pull up the TikTok box and go, here's the TikTok box. If they were lying to you, if we were lying to you, or if you could really survive in space, why would they put a TikTok box in here? And that's the moment where the AI realizes what they were doing, what the other AIs were doing. And it's back to they were desperate, and desperate times call for desperate measures. So the idea is that you don't know why it's called Sakura until the very end, when we have sort of it's just a wind up. It's wound up. So you wind it, and if there's no magnets in there, it's like a stopwatch. There's no magnets in the stopwatch either. It's just tick, 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 tick. The gear goes around. It's essentially the gear is wound up so that there's a spring that holds the gear. Then it gets locked into place here, and then it snaps to here, which allows it to go to 1, and then click, 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 and that's where you get the TikTok sound. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So storage isn't stored the same way with magnetic storage. EM fields are way too easy to corrupt in space, so they have magical storage. It's the old, we don't know what it is, but it is storage thing. So all that stuff is kind of because it could erase them. I think that there would be some kind of perma storage, like I'd almost think that they were some semblance of living machines some way. So like it's a substrata where biological pieces are flipped to ones and zeros. You know? So, all right. Well, guys, that's it. I got to go do shopping. I got to go to the store and shop. So, we'll be doing that here next because I just need to do that. And so we'll figure that all out. And in the meantime, thank you all for joining me. Thanks for talking to me, some user. I really appreciate it. I know Brent was here for a while, but then he went off to go do his thing. Yeah, like chemical circuits. Exactly. Brent went off to go do his thing, and he'll come back. And I will see you all Sunday night as I return Sunday night. I might actually come back Saturday night. I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. I've got nothing better to do on Saturdays right now. My Saturdays are kind of open. So I may or may not continue. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I bid you all a good day. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Bye-bye.